Welcome back to another video, and this story is coming out of St. Louis, Missouri, and this is a rather sad story. But before we get started, I did want to ask that if you enjoy the videos, enjoy the commentary, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that we can grow the channel. All right, let's get into the article. Prosecutor: drugs or alcohol may have role in St. Louis's cops Russian roulette shooting death. So some of you may have heard about the two officers who were playing Russian roulette, and one of the officers died. And this is a follow-up to that story. Drugs or alcohol might have played a role in the shooting death of a St. Louis police officer who was allegedly playing a Russian roulette-like game with her colleague, a St. Louis prosecutor said Tuesday. So you have two police officers, for some insane reason, thought it was a good idea to play Russian roulette. Now, in my personal opinion, people who play games like that, especially like Russian roulette, I think that they may have like suicidal tendencies, because the bullet is going to exit the gun at some point, especially if you keep passing it around. You just don't know if it's going to exit on your turn. That is risk taking at its best. I know some people like to live on the edge, but that's just too close to the edge, because that bullet is going to come out at some point. St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kimberly Gardner also said police officers interfered with her investigation after the shooting. Okay, let's find out what's going on with that. Police say Officer Nathaniel Hendren, 29, shot Officer Caitlin Alex, 24, in his apartment early Thursday in the presence of a third officer. Okay, so I guess they are not naming the third officer. Hendren and Alex were taking turns pointing a revolver loaded with single cartridge at each other, police say. Now, this is the problem that I have. Now, I'm not saying that this is not what happened, but she's not here to give her part of the story. So I'm going to say they were allegedly playing Russian roulette, because it seems strange that there were three people in the room, but only two of them was playing the game. Was the other one egging them on? Was the other one, in another room? I know that's the story, but it just, two police officers playing Russian roulette, it just seems, beyond real. Not saying that didn't happen, but what's going on with this third person that was in the room? The third officer, I guess he's Hendren's partner, told investigators he urged Hendren and Alex not to play with the firearm. Police said in a statement of probable cause. Police have not released the partner's name. So she wasn't even this guy's partner. So what were those three doing together? It's interesting. Hendren was charged the day after the shooting with involuntary manslaughter and armed criminal action. The officer, who is being held in lieu of a $50,000 cash-only bail, made a brief appearance in court on Tuesday. If convicted, he could be sentenced to up to 10 years in prison. Now, if this was a game of Russian roulette, do you think the 10 years is enough? Do you think it should be more? Do you think it should be less, since they were both participants? And to be honest, I'm okay. If it was actually Russian roulette, I'm okay with the 10-year prison sentence, because I think that's an adequate amount of time for someone to learn their lesson. And if it was him that had gotten killed, I think she should face the same type of consequence. Hendren has been suspended without pay by the department. Gardner wrote Tuesday that there was probable cause at the scene that drugs or alcohol may be a contributing factor in a potential crime. She did not offer any specifics in the letter about the evidence. Okay, so that would explain, they weren't in their right mind. I wonder how much drugs and alcohol they had in their system. I'm quite sure they did some tests, and they probably tested her, because, normally you hear about, teenagers or children, doing little things like this. But, two adults, especially two adults who are here to uphold the law and to protect society. They're doing one of the most dangerous things you could do, and that's playing Russian roulette. In the same letter, she also complained that St. Louis police officers interfered with her office's investigation at the hospital after the shooting. Okay, what's that about? She said police told her investigators that the hospital would not honor a search warrant to draw blood from Hendren or his partner. Oh, okay. So I guess since this was an officer involved shooting, they need to draw blood because they need to test the blood. But the police officers wouldn't let that happen. So I don't know. You know how police officers protect each other. So maybe they were trying to protect him, because they knew that something wasn't right. And so that's what I'm thinking. I'm sure you're aware that we have a protocol with area hospitals that they will honor our search warrants for blood draws, wrote. This procedure is common in criminal investigations. So I wonder why the police officers would not honor this search or told the hospital not to honor the blood draws. Later, she said police officials told one of her prosecutors that a sample had been drawn. When an investigator from her office asked if a blood sample was drawn, she said police responded that a breath test was taken as well as urine analysis instead of a blood test. So it just sounds like that they're trying to protect this young man, because they know that they're going to find probably plenty of drugs and plenty of alcohol in both of those officers' systems. She said her office learned that the tests were taken under Garrity, federal rules which protect public employees from being compelled to incriminate themselves during an investigation conducted by their employers. Okay, so I guess they're saying, under this rule, I don't want to incriminate myself, so I don't have to give you a blood test. But they gave him a urine test and I forgot what the other test was, just that quick. But they gave them the two other tests. So, I don't know. This could prevent the evidence from being used by prosecutors in their investigation of the shooting. Taking the test under Garrity appears as an obstruction tactic to prevent us from understanding the state of the officers during the commission of this alleged crime, Gardner wrote. Yes, it's like they don't want them, like they knew that that they would find them drugs and alcohol in the system. So that's why they did not that's why they wouldn't let them take the blood draw. So it sounds like the police are covering up for their own because they don't want to be held accountable for they don't want him to be held accountable for what happened. All right, and here is the young lady that was playing the Russian roulette game. This is Caitlin. Unfortunately, she passed away. Talmadge Newton, Hendren's defense attorney, said if officers had not followed the Garrity rules, they would have violated Hendren's and his partner's constitutional rights. Okay, so I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if that's true or not, but to me, it would be logical to draw this blood and take the test as part of an investigation. To me, if I was her family, I would want that to happen. And I would be upset if they told me that they couldn't do it because their rights are protected. I've been a victim before, and I'm telling you, it always seems that the victims have the hardest time when it comes to the justice system. It just seems like that to me. Further, Circuit Attorney Gardner is now on record in writing that she is willing to violate the Constitution to support these unfounded criminal charges against Officer Hendren by circumventing the law and demanding information from the police department that will violate the United States Constitution, Newton said in a statement. Okay, I guess, Circuit Attorney Gardner, she wants to be disbarred, I don't know. It is clear that the Circuit Attorney Gardner cannot be impartial, unbiased, or objective in continuing to prosecute these charges, and that the entire investigation is unsalvageable and the prosecution irreversibly tainted due to Circuit Attorney Gardner's unconstitutional investigation and prosecutorial misconduct. Okay. Yeah, so if she publicly stated that she would not honor the Constitution, she probably needs to be pulled off of this case at this point. Gardner also criticized Hayden for calling the shooting an accidental discharge in comments to reporters hours after the incident. Police initially said Hendren had mishandled the gun, so it sounds like they tried to cover up again and lie on the report. In my opinion, it is completely inappropriate for investigators to approach a crime scene that early in the investigation with predisposed conclusion about the outcome of a case, she wrote. It's particularly troublesome given that the Force Investigative Unit is required to conduct objective investigations of officer involved shootings. But you have two officers who were shooting at each other, and one had the fatal hit. So, I think they're just covering up, the force is trying to cover up for the male officer. Edwards pushed back on Gardner's assertion. All officers are not obstructionists, he said. He said it's the police department's role to process a crime scene. Now, he's acting like there's no police corruption. We all know police corruption happens all the time. I think most officers are good, but you do have a few bad apples in the police force that makes everybody look bad. So do I believe that there was some type of police cover-up? Yeah, I do. I believe it. I think they were trying to cover up for him. We have to be careful that the prosecutor does not go on scene and direct the collection of evidence in many instances, he said. Police say Hendren shot Alex shortly before 1 a.m. Thursday. Hendren and his partner were on duty at the time. Alex was off duty. Now, why was Alex with two on-duty officers at 1 o'clock in the morning? That's strange. And shouldn't Hendren and his partner have been on patrol or something? Where were they that they were just chilling out playing Russian roulette? And where was the other officer that was with them? What was he doing? I'm still curious about that. Neither Gardner nor police have said why the three officers were at Hendren's South St. Louis apartment. Oh my goodness, that just makes it worse. So they was at an apartment when those two were supposed to be working, and the female officer was there too at 1 in the morning. More than 2 miles from the district where Hendren and his partner were assigned to patrol. So I don't mean no harm. The partner probably needs to lose his job too, because they clearly wasn't working. Okay, because they were at the officer who shot the female's apartment. Was this really a game of Russian roulette? I mean, they were supposed to be on duty. They weren't even supposed to be in an apartment. Police say Hendren emptied the cylinder of a revolver and then put one round back in. And I'm still back on they were off duty and they were supposed to be on patrol. Are they not supervised? And I wonder if this is the first time that they were not on where they were supposed to be. He spun the cylinder, pointed it away, and pulled the trigger, police said in the probable cause statement, but the gun did not fire. I don't know if I believe anything the police say at this point. I'm just saying. Alex then took the gun, pointed it at Hendren, and pulled the trigger. Police said. Again, it did not fire. Police said the third officer present, Hendren's partner, told Hendren and Alex that they were police officers and they shouldn't be playing with guns. That sounds like a textbook answer. All right, y'all, my conspiracy theories are starting to kick in. I think there's something else going on between these three officers, that she was with them at 1 o'clock in the morning and they were not where they were supposed to be patrolling. They were at his apartment. Okay, something was going on with them, all three of them. As he left the room, police said he heard a gunshot. Alex was shot in the chest. She died at a nearby hospital a short time later. And the bad thing is she can't even tell her side of the story because she's dead. So we have to go by whatever I feel may be lies. I'm not saying they are, but they may be lies in this report, and what these two officers had gotten together, they partners. So what they got together and talked about. I want to know if if this is a true story, if this is what really happened. As he left the room, police said he heard. Okay, I did that already. Alex entered the St. Louis Police Academy. This is the female in June 2016. She was commissioned a police officer 2 years ago. She served 6 years in the U.S. Army Reserves, including a year deployed to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Hendren was a former Marine, according to police union spokesman Jeffrey Rorter. So they really knew better. They were military background, police officers. That doesn't make sense that they were playing Russian roulette. Again, I'm not saying that they wasn't, but we don't have her side of the story because she's dead. So they can say anything, as far as I'm concerned. She is survived by her husband, Anthony J. Meyer. So she was married. Here we go. 1 in the morning. She's not on duty, but she's not home with her husband. And she's out with two male officers at one of the male officers' apartment with possibly a lot of drugs and alcohol playing Russian roulette. Okay, something just don't sound right to me. So she survived by her husband, parents Ronald J. Alex Sr. and Amy Lynn Wallers. Oh, I feel so bad for them. And siblings Jessica Durbin, Ronald Alex Jr., Taylor, and Logan Chadwick. Look at all those people and probably a whole host of other people that was left behind. If this was a game of Russian roulette, this was avoidable. But if it wasn't, like I'm kind of thinking it wasn't, but I'm not sure, then this is really a tragedy and they need to get to the truth. Funeral services is scheduled for Wednesday. All right. So this is the article, and I'll show the young lady's picture again. This is the young lady who lost her life. My heart does go out to the family. At the end of the day, I think that the police officers are covering up. I believe the two officers who were in that room with her are covering up. And I think the force is trying to make it look like it was a game of Russian roulette. So we'll see if this is how this story is going to end. So I can follow. I definitely will be following up with this. But if it was Russian roulette, I don't know what to say. These two people must have had some type of internal battle in their mind that they didn't care if they lived or died. Russian roulette means, you're taking a chance at your life. Normally, when you play Russian roulette, I thought they pointed at their heads, but I guess they pointing it at each other. That's another reason why it just sounds so suspicious. I mean, maybe that is a way that you play Russian roulette, by pointing it at each other. Why would you do that, especially if you're a police officer? You know that if the gun come out, you're going to be charged with murder. Normally, if you point it at yourself, they rule it as suicide. So it just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, we'll add this to the list of stories that we're following up on. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please like and subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully.